Well, a question. When you say my story, who is speaking? Where is this I that claims possession? Can you locate it behind the eyes? In the throb of the heart? In the folds of memory? Point to it if you can. Am I here? Or here? Now where am I? No surgeon has ever yet found any me inside a body. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. I am not in the physical. The story unrolls in thought like a film on a screen. But the screen is not in the film, and the film does not own the light that makes it visible. The personal story may be present in thought, yes, but it is not the I that I am. Notice the movement of mind. It gathers episodes, grievances, triumphs, and calls that bundle me. It points to a beginning and dares to forecast an end. But when the narration stops for even a breath, what stands revealed? Something prior to the first sentence of my story. Something that remains when the last sentence fades. Presence. I am. The witness that does not enter the parade and therefore is not trampled by it. When you cease saying my story, not as a trick of phrasing, but as an inner relinquishment, the I am announces itself without words. It has no need to boast because it is the being of being. Let us be plain. Identity is not a bundle of events, not a sum of wounds, not a chain of reactions, not a biography, not a scrapbook of photographs, not dates circled on a calendar, not the verdict of a crowd. No. Identity is not the last argument you won, nor the injury you suffered, nor the role you played so long you forgot it was a costume. The story can be tragic or glorious, tidy or tangled, and it will still be only a telling, an appearance in awareness. You are the awareness to which it appears. Do not misunderstand. We are not here to improve the story, to paint the prison walls a kinder color. We are not here to rehearse the past until it behaves better. We are here to discover what remains when the story is not being held as identity. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. I am merely the instrument. God is the actor. If that is true, and it is, then the life that I am is not authored by memory and cannot be confined to its pages. So set your aim aright. Not to analyze, not to embroider the narrative with moral of the day, but to notice the quiet that is underneath the narration and never leaves. Be still, inwardly still, even now. Let the sentences about me pause in midair, like birds deciding not to land. Ask simply, who is the I that says my? Do not reach for an answer. Wait. Receptivity, not willpower. Let the old authority of the story fall away and stand unadorned in presence. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let that be the soft password that turns your attention from the character on the stage to the light by which the stage is seen. And in that light, you discover the I that was never born, never wounded, never lacking, only witnessing, only being. Now observe what happens when a tale is given a throne. The mind raises the banner of my trauma, my history, my pattern, and bows before it as if it were oracle and lawgiver. Before we consult God, we consult the record. Before we rest in presence, we revisit the file. Before we love our neighbor, we review the charge sheet. That is idolatry in spiritual terms, a subtle, thou shalt have another God, fashioned of memory. Do not be shocked by the word. We are not condemning. We are uncovering. When any authority precedes the I am, even the sanctified pain of yesterday, it becomes a false god. And false gods never bless. They tax. How are cycles kept alive? Very simply. The mind replays an image, labels it danger, predicts its return, braces for impact, and then meets the world with its fists already clenched. That is sowing. As you sow, so shall you reap. Sow defense, reap conflict. Sow suspicion, reap evidence to confirm it. Sow a self-portrait of the wounded avenger or the perpetual victim. Reap encounters sculpted to fit the frame. You call it psychology. Scripture calls it law. The harvest does not punish. It reveals the seed. There is a mechanism, quiet and obedient, that does this work. My story becomes a lens pressed over consciousness. Then every face is seen through it, every word graded by it, every silence decoded by it. The friend speaks, and the lens whispers, "What do they want?" The opportunity arrives, and the lens mutters, "It won't last." A door closes, and the lens shouts, "Always you." And so you do not meet life from presence. You meet it from armor. Presence knows no armor because it knows no adversary. The story requires armor because it believes in enemies. This is not different from mathematics or traffic. Violate 2 times 2 is 4, and your bridge will not stand. You have not offended arithmetic, you have ignored it, and the consequence is built into the design. Disregard a stop sign, and sooner or later you call down upon yourself the inevitable result. The traffic law does not rage, it simply operates. So too with identity law. Place power in a past, and the structure of your day will sag under the weight of that misplaced authority. Not a curse, a result. Let us be very gentle here. We are not blaming ourselves for hurt we did not choose. We are not making guilt the new lens. No, we are noticing a mistaken premise, that the past can define the I that is before the past. We are seeing how consulting the record as God keeps the cycle spinning. And we are remembering, my conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. When that is first, the lens slips, the fists soften, the harvest changes. If, in this very moment, the mind would hurry to consult the file, let it pause at the door and hear, quietly, "Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things." In that pause, the tyrant loses a scepter, and presence begins to govern. Let us look more closely and be very simple. We have said no surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. Now I say to you, no archivist has yet found your me inside a memory. They can open the file, unfold the letters, recite the dates, and still there is no I lying there between nouns and verbs. Memory can be vivid, the picture lifelike, the feeling strong, and still the I remains unlocated within it. Where then is the I that knows the picture? When you say, "I remember," where is that I? Is it inside the sentence that says it? No. Is it inside the image that appears? No. Is it inside the ache that follows? No. No. The sentence arises and falls away. The image brightens and dims. The ache swells and passes. That which knows them does not arise and does not pass. It witnesses their coming. It witnesses their going. It is unchanged by the content it beholds. You are not the wave of recollection. You are the stillness that knows waves. You are the awareness of the story, not the character the story describes. Consider a mirror. The faces approach and depart. The mirror does not go with them and does not keep their features as its substance. If the reflected face smiles or weeps, the mirror is not made joyful or sorrowful. It is capacity, not character. So with the I of you. 1,000 thoughts wear masks and proclaim themselves me. But when the theater empties, the stage remains. Be not deceived by costuming. The knower is never the costume it beholds. What is the name of that knower? When Moses asked, the answer was not a story. It was, I am. Be still and know that I am God. There is the method and the revelation in one breath. Be still. Stop kneading the clay of recollection as if life were in the clay. Know, not think, not argue, not embellish, that I am is God, the being of being, present before memory, during memory, after memory. Absent from the story, present with the Lord. Do not misunderstand what is asked. We are not suppressing memory. We are removing identity from memory. The ledger may remain for its human usefulness, but it is no longer the authority for who I am. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, identity rests in God and not in report. To enthrone recollection as God is to live under its fluctuating law. To return identity to God is to come under grace. There can be no selfish purpose in this. It is obedience to the first commandment in the realm of thought. So when the past rises with its familiar posture, let us not push it down, nor dress it up. Let it be seen, and as it is seen, quietly say within, I am the awareness in which this appears. I am not in it. It is in me as appearance, and I in God as being. Then be still. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Say it, not to change the memory, but to remember where identity abides. In that remembrance the heat leaves the tail, the glue of personalization softens, and the cycle finds no carrier. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. And in that instrumentality, presence stands where narration once ruled, and the I that is I am is free. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Bring that into modern speech, and it says, do not make an idol of your history. Do not consult the record as the final truth about yourself or your neighbor. If, before you seek God, you seek the file. If, before you extend love, you revisit the injury. If, before you open your hand, you reread the ledger, then you have a God other than the living God. And when you make a God of the story, you live under its law. The law of fluctuation, reaction, fear, pride. Not a punishment, a premise bearing fruit. There is a double-edged sword here. If I use the story to justify resentment, the edge turns and cuts me off from the very life that would heal me. If I use the story to feel superior, I inherit the loneliness of my own separation. If I use the story to withdraw, I meet a world that cannot reach me. If I use it to manipulate, I become entangled in the nets I cast. As you sow, so shall you reap. You violate a traffic law, and the result is built into the act. The law does not hate you, it functions. You deny 2 times 2 is 4 and build your bridge on that denial. It is not arithmetic that punishes. The bridge falls of its own wrong premise. So with narrative idolatry. The isolation and conflict are not sent by a wrathful deity. They are the natural harvest of an adopted authority other than God. Love thy neighbor as thyself is not a sentiment. It is an identity practice. If I am not my story, then you are not yours. I cannot meet you as an offense, a label, a category, a threat. I must meet you in the same I am in which I meet God. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, I do not consult your record to decide whether to honor the Christ of you. I do not require your past to tell me how much love I can afford. When identity is returned to God, the neighbor is no longer competition or danger. He is included in the one. Understand the seriousness of this without slipping into moralism. Cosmic law is impersonal. It carries no grudge and accepts no bribe. It reveals the effect of the premise we accept. Choose the premise of separation, and the fruit is separation. Choose the premise of oneness, and the fruit is grace. This is liberation, not denial. Accountability remains. If amends are to be made, make them. If responsibilities call, answer. But condemnation dissolves because the judge we once consulted, the story, has been retired from the bench. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. Then the movement of life is no longer managed by pain as power, but governed by presence. So let the first commandment be the guard at your heart's door. When the record knocks, do not crown it. Be still. Let it pass without enthronement, and whisper within, Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. In that obedience, the sword is sheathed, the idols fall, and grace takes up the government. Now let us come to practice. Not a performance, not an improvement plan, but the simple entering of the chair where the story cannot follow. It will be a chair low enough that your feet rest naturally on the floor, not dangling, not straining. Sit easily. Let the spine find its natural length without stiffness. Never prop the arms as if to do something. Let the hands rest lightly, palms easy upon the lap or the thighs. Shoulders loose, jaw unforced. Close the eyes, not as a trance, but as a courtesy to quiet. Breathe as you breathe when you are not thinking about breathing. No dramatic inhalations, no pattern. There is no occult reason for any of this, only physical comfort, so the body does not intrude upon attention. In this position with the eyes closed, become virtually unaware of having a body. Not by pushing it away, not by fighting it, just by allowing it to be so comfortable it requires no supervision. What is the intent here? Not to fix feelings, not to force forgiveness, not to rewrite the past. The intent is receptivity. I am not in the physical, absent from the body, present with the Lord. I come to this chair to be still, to be available to the presence already here. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, I do not demand a sign. I do not bargain for an outcome. I do not hire God to make over my narrative. Be still and know that I am God. We do not try to know. We let knowing announce itself. Now the key move. Let the body and the storyline drop out of attention as identity. If a sensation appears, do not cling to it and do not banish it. If a memory arrives dressed as me, let it be an appearance in awareness, not the owner of awareness. No, no. Do not pick up the thread to explain it or mend it. If a prayer wants to form, let it be no more than a whisper within. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. That is not a lever to pull. It is the password that turns us from managing to yielding. Rest in it. Desireless waiting. We do not time it with a watch. We do not test it with a question. We sit in willingness, not willpower. Presently, sometimes in moments, sometimes in minutes, the inner signal arrives. I call it the click. Do not look for thunder. The click is a quiet shift from narration to presence, from thinking about God to feeling, knowing, being the I am before words. Something in the chest unclenches. The breath forgets itself. An ease that is not drowsy, an alertness that is not tense. It wants to say and speak and do, but without words. In that instant, you know. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. The story has not been solved. It has been silenced by a greater authority. When the click comes, do nothing with it. Do not hurry to apply it. Do not rush out to change anyone, least of all yourself. Sit a minute longer in that sufficiency. Then rise and let the day proceed under that government. Return often. 2 minutes in a chair, 30 seconds at a kitchen sink, a pause at a red light. Each time the record tries to sit in your seat, do not wrestle it. Simply take your seat again and let grace keep it. Receptivity, not willpower, is the door through which the story loses its authority. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Say it softly, mean nothing by it, and wait until it says you. The click is not a flare in the sky. It is a hush within, a decisive quiet that settles everything without argument. It is a warmth, not heat, not excitement, that seems to rise from nowhere and everywhere at once, and with it a gentle weight of authority that requires no proof. It does not hurry you. It does not command with noise. It confirms. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. Absent from the personal sense, present with the inner presence. In that instant you are not made sleepy, you are made still. You are not inflated, you are emptied of strain. The mind stops narrating its importance, and the heart ceases to negotiate. What remains is I am, before the story, during the story, after the story. Now mark what changes and what does not. The facts of your day may stand where they stood. The ledger may not lose a single line. Yet the throne has been moved. The story, once foreground, now drifts to the background like scenery you no longer mistake for landscape. It can be consulted for its usefulness, but it cannot be consulted for your identity. You find yourself quietly saying, not to persuade, but because it is so, I am not in the story. I am not in the story. I am in God, and God is in me. And with that, the undertow that kept pulling you back into rehearsal loses its claim. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. How shall you know this is not emotion, dressing as revelation? Because it does not agitate, it steadies. It does not crave witnesses, it blesses without announcement. It is felt sometimes as a soft warmth in the chest, sometimes as a widening behind the eyes, sometimes as a deep, unargued rightness. It is I. Be not afraid. Not a voice to the ear, a certainty to awareness. You will notice that criticism loses its urgency in that atmosphere. Defense falls asleep. The need to get even has no air to breathe. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, the neighbor, once seen through the lens of grievance, is now included in the one. The circumstance that demanded panic is now framed by presence and is answered from a different law. This is not for belief. This is for proving. You can prove it in the next breath. Let the narration stop for a moment, not forced, simply unpicked, and attend to what remains. Do you fall into a hole? No. You discover you were never being held up by words. Be still and know that I am God. Touch that stillness, and you will find it waits faithfully before every sentence you utter. It remains quietly during every scene you play, and it abides after the curtain falls. If the mind rises to resume its telling, do not wrestle. Return to the password that returns you. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Absent from the story, present with the Lord. Wait a heartbeat beyond wanting, and the click comes. Sometimes a whisper, sometimes a palpable ease. And in that moment, the government shifts. I am is here. I am is always here. And the story, once master, becomes servant under grace. Breaking a cycle is not the same as fixing a past. Do you see? Repair belongs to the realm of effects. Causation belongs to the realm of being. When identity is lifted from the story and returned to I am, the old reactions find no wick to burn. The match can be struck. There is nothing to catch. The insult appears and looks for the self it used to inflame. No one answers. The temptation arrives and reaches for the self it used to recruit. No one signs up. The fear rises and seeks the manager who used to rehearse disaster. No office is open. This is not indifference. It is new government. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Under that law, the compulsive repetition weakens because it is not being fed by self-definition. The story no longer authorizes the response. Presence does. This is the secret of instrumentality. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. I do not take up spirituality as a handle to twist outcomes or people. No. No. That would be to place a human will behind sacred words, and the law turns double-edged. As you sow, so shall you reap. Sow manipulation in holy clothing, and you reap confusion. Sow surrender to God, and you reap the fruit of God. I do not project thoughts at a brother. I do not bargain with silence. I do not attempt to edit the theater from the audience. I take my seat, and I let the playwright govern the play. Absent from the story, present with the Lord. What of the body that trembles, the heartbeat that quickens, the chest that tightens? Calm is not won by analysis. Calm is given as we lay down the sword of self-defense. Be still and know that I am God. In that knowing, felt not as argument but as yielded awareness, the nervous system discovers it does not have to be the guardian of a threatened image. Life lives itself through me when I stop defending a picture of me. Breath unwatches itself. Shoulders forget their post. The wave rises and falls, but it rises and falls on an ocean that is not alarmed. I am not in the physical. I am not in the story. Identity rests in God, and the body is relieved of performing as identity. Then relationships change without our arranging them. If I am not my costume, then you are not yours. I meet you not as a role in my drama, but as spiritual being and idea in God. The arithmetic shifts. Where there were two competing claims, there is one life expressing. When I want nothing you have, and you want nothing that I have, there is no possibility of a war. Cooperation becomes natural, not achieved. Courtesy appears without calculation. Correction, when required, is clean and unblaming because it arises from law, not from anger. Love thy neighbor as thyself ceases to be a demand and becomes a recognition. Now to practice in the street. The very first flutter of a trigger, before the sentence forms, before the fists tightens, use it as your bell. Not to rush into the file, not to plead your case. Quietly, inwardly, return to I am. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Absent from the reflex, present with the Lord. Do not fix, yield. Do not manage, consent. Let the Father within me do the works. In that instant of non-management, the old circuitry has no current. A word you once would have spoken is not spoken. A step you once would have taken is not taken. Or a generosity you once withheld flows of itself. This is the new causation. God living the life as the only life. And as this becomes your reflex, the wheel that needed your push slows, stops, and is taken up by grace. Now a boundary, and it is loving because it guards your freedom. Do not tamper with a cosmic law. Don't ever try to use it. It is a double-edged sword. If you take this realization of presence and hitch it to a personal will, if you use silence as a lever to dominate, to seduce, to win an argument, to punish a brother or improve a foe, you have put your hand on the wrong edge. As you sow, so shall you reap. Misuse is its own recompense. You violate, 2 times 2 is 4, and your structure collapses. Mathematics is not angry, it is exact. You run a red light and eventually meet the inescapable result. The traffic law is not vengeful, it is operative. So with this, the moment a selfish purpose enters, you have stepped out from grace into self, and self carries its own strain. Let us be unmistakable. I am not my story is not a license to deny pain or neglect duty. It is not a permission slip to skip restitution, refuse help, or silence a cry that must be heard. No, no. We do not erase memory while a wound bleeds. We remove identity from it, and then meet the human need wisely, without making a god of the need. If there is a call to make it. If amends are to be offered, offer them. If a boundary is to be set it. But do so under God, not under egoic theater. Absent from the story, present with the Lord, then action is clean, and reaction is spared. I never give human advice. I will not tell you to take this job, or leave that marriage, or sign that paper. That would be to make me a minor deity over your affairs, and there is only one. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, the counsel is always the same. Retire to the chair, be still, and seek the kingdom within. Knock at the door of your own consciousness. Wait in receptivity until the click, until the wordless yes that carries no strain. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. Let the Father within me do the works. Here is the safe ethic. Thou shalt have no other gods. Love thy neighbor as thyself. There can be no selfish purpose in a cosmic law. No private gain at another's expense can be harmonized with oneness. To attempt it is to step outside the very atmosphere that nourishes you. When you stand in love, when you want nothing your neighbor has, and you are willing to be a transparency for good, the guidance that comes does not collide with another's good, and you do not need to force it. It arrives without pressure, without rehearsal, without fear of loss. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Examine your motive as you would examine a foundation. Is there any personal agenda in it? Any wish to appear spiritual, to win, to be vindicated? If so, lay it down gently and be still again. In the uncluttered heart, the step is shown, and it is proportionate, timely, merciful. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. Absent from control, present with grace. And in that non-interference, the law blesses both instrument and field. For it is one life expressing, one love fulfilling itself as all. Now, if the story has stepped down from the throne, what steps up? Not a new costume, not a better narrative. A new self-definition that is not new at all. Eternal, present, simple. Be still and know that I am God. I am not in the physical, absent from the body, present with the Lord. Hear it as a litany, and let it write itself where the record used to write you. In my oneness with God, I find completeness. In my oneness with God, I find security. In my oneness with God, I find peace. In my oneness with God, I find supply. In my oneness with God, I find companionship. In my oneness with God, I find purpose. I do not acquire these. I discover them, resident where I am is the name. What you sought from the story was always a borrowed version of these. An explanation to make the world make sense. A protection to keep harm at bay. A specialness to guarantee you would not be overlooked. The file promised meaning, but only reissued arguments. The armor promised safety, but only tightened the chest. The badge promised worth, but only separated you from your own. Now exchange the substitute for the substance. Explanation gives way to knowing. The mind rests in, because I am. Protection yields to presence. Safety is not outside in, but within as. Specialness melts into belovedness. I am names the same holiness in you and in your neighbor. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, I no longer draw identity from the newspaper of yesterday. I draw it from the living God. And hear this for the tender places. You have as much right to forgive yourself 70 times 7 as to forgive your neighbor. Why? Because the old self you condemn was a premise, not reality. It was a mask worn by fear, an interpretation, a voice from the file. Reality is, I am, and I am was not injured, tarnished, or improved by any page. Do not mistake this for evasion. If amends are due, make them. As you sow, so shall you reap. But let the reaping be guided by grace, not driven by shame. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. Then restitution is clean, and the heart is spared the whip. Do not keep this as a private achievement. It is not a medal. It is a revelation of the universal. The I that says I am in you is the same I that lives in all. Thou shalt have no other gods means do not enthrone a personal version of worth when the infinite is your name. When I find completeness in God, I do not take from you, I include you. When I find supply in God, I cannot covet yours. I bless yours as mine in the one. When I find companionship in God, I cease bargaining for love. I recognize love living itself as us. Carry it now as a password, not a theory. When the story taps your shoulder, at the sink, at the screen, at the bedside, turn gently and whisper within, Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let it answer the search for explanation. Thy grace. Let it answer the call for protection. Thy grace. Let it answer the hunger for specialness. Thy grace. Wait one heartbeat beyond wanting, and the click will come, or the calm will come. And even if neither appears, authority has shifted. Identity established in God becomes the floor you stand on, and on that floor, the story can no longer rule. Let us be still a moment. Let the mind's biography rest on the table as you would set down a heavy book at day's end. No page needs turning now. No sentence requires defense. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. Absent from the record, present with the presence. In this breath, let the inner hush announce itself. Not as a doing, not as an attainment, but as what remains when you do not narrate. Be still and know that I am God. Now hear the password the heart may carry into every corridor of the day. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. When the story rises and reaches for the throne, answer gently, Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. When memory argues its case, when fear drafts its orders, when pride seeks a crown, Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Not to persuade God, to remember God. Not to change the page, to stop worshiping the page. In that remembrance, the government changes, and the cycle fades for lack of a self to feed it. Let the simple affirmations seal this work within you. I am. I and the Father are one. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. I am not in the physical. I am not in the story. I am in God, and God is in me. Let these not be slogans. Let them be atmosphere. Sit in them as you would sit in sunlight, not striving to hold the light, only consenting to be warmed. The call is gentle, and it is constant. Knock at the door of your own consciousness. Seek God, and you shall find good. Return again and again until the click becomes familiar, at the sink, at the screen, between words on the phone, before you enter a room. 30 seconds of surrendered attention is enough to change the law you live under from reaction to grace. Do not time it. Do not test it. Yield to it. Be willing to be the transparency through which the Father within you does the works. We close with gratitude and quiet certainty. Thank you, Father, that the self is I am and not a headline. Thank you that the tale may be remembered for its use, but it will not be worshipped. Thank you that love governs where fear once managed, that presence stands where narration once ruled. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. It is I, be not afraid. And so it is, and I thank you.